By the end of today's lesson, what we're going to have looked at is how to put on stage a piece of Shakespeare that you haven't seen before, so you need to be able to understand what we're doing. So we need to work on the knowledge and understanding of that piece of Shakespeare. So we're going to look at that, and then you're going to have the skills in place to put that on stage by working in your groups. So we're looking at your knowledge and understanding of the piece of Shakespeare, of the writing, and then the skills that are needed to get you from where you're sitting to performing it on stage. If I took you to see a Shakespeare play, you would see it and you would experience it, but not necessarily fully understand it because you wouldn't understand some of the words. Okay? That's the first part of today's lesson, how to take it from the written words in a script and put it on a stage so that people can see what you're doing. Now, running alongside that, that means you can't work on your own. Because if you're seeing someone on a stage, not always, very rarely, they're on their own, because there's other people working there. Now, if we put you in groups, and you're all going to be working in a slightly different part of the room, what could happen?
It could get a bit loud.
Very good. It could get a bit loud, because there's a lot of you. What else could happen?
Get stuck.
Okay, so how are you going to get help? If I'm working with someone else, who are you going to ask?
You could ask a friend.
Right, you could ask a friend, because you're going to be working in that group with your friends. I need to be sure that if I'm working in another part of the room, that I can trust all the other people to work well. What do we need to come up with in order to make that work? Yeah.
Rules.
Rules. That's it. Very good. We need, all of us, good rules in place before any of the group work that we start. So what I would like is for you to come up with just a few rules that you are going to follow in this lesson.
We need to listen to other people's comments.
We need to listen to other people. That's exactly right, because you need to be able to hear what other opinions people have, not just your own. That's how you get a different point of view. Any other ideas?
We need to cooperate.
Cooperate. You need to work as a team, because someone else may have a better idea. It may not be as good as your idea, but then if you're not cooperating, they can't hear what you've got to say either.
We need to follow instructions that are given.
Absolutely right. You need to follow instructions, because if you're not listening to the instructions and you don't follow them, you might go off and do something else that could be good, but perhaps isn't exactly where the entire rest of the class is going. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to looking at the piece of Shakespeare, looking at the words, making sure we understand the words, and then I'm going to get a couple of people to come up here. I'm going to show them what I'd like you all to do. Then you're all going to go off in groups and do your own version of the same scene. So now what's going to happen is we're going to get you into groups and you're going to work on these scenes. You're going to recreate what the three did here. So one of you is Samson, one of you is Gregory, one of you is Abram, and we're going to start to develop what this would look like on a stage. In a minute there's going to be about 6 or 7 groups and you're going to be all around the room and there's only going to be one of me. It's easy for me to talk to you when you're all sitting here listening to me, but when everyone splits up, I can't be in everywhere at the same time. So when we're talking about working in groups, what are the rules that we came up with?
We have to cooperate.
You have to cooperate, you have to work together, that's right.
Listen to each other's comments.
You've got to listen to what everyone else has to say, and let's have your answer as well.
Don't argue.
That's right, don't argue. You've got to work together in this. Now what we're going to do is put on the skills of the actor. So we're putting it on stage, so you've got to look right, you've got to move right, you've got to work together. So we're going to split you up into 3s. So I don't mind which groups you're in, as long as when I come round to see each group working, you're all sticking to the rules that we've agreed to. Let's go.
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?
I do bite my thumb, sir.
Do you, Coral, sir?
Well, sir, no, sir.
But if you do, sir, and for you, I serve as good as man as you.
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir.
What we were talking about at the start of the lesson was about the language of Shakespeare, if you can remember, and that one of the biggest problems to people understanding Shakespeare is making sure that they all understand the language. Once we understood the language, we had to think about what skills were necessary for actors. All those different things that actors need to do. They have to be aware of where the audience are. They have to be aware of how to react to each other. But most importantly, you needed to work all of that out. And you couldn't have worked all that out unless you were particularly good at working as a team. So you know these rules that you came up with for working in groups, working together? They could be used in lots of different places. They can be used in your class, but whatever the subject is, whatever lesson you're doing in school, whatever you're doing outside of school, if you're following those rules and working as a group, that is where you are going to be successful.